Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're having a good day, and if not, hopefully it gets better. Welcome back to It's Just Music, the YouTube channel where I talk about music related things I happen to be hyper fixated on at the moment. And in this video, we are going to be talking about Benson Boone. Now, I don't know much about Benson Boone other than that he's a relatively new artist. He has a song on Billboard that will not leave the top 10. He was at the Grammy where he was in this outfit and he did a backflip and adjusted his crotch, and then Mark Zuckerberg went on to recreate the look for some reason. I don't really know, I don't keep up with Mark Zuckerberg, and that he's Mormon or ex-Mormon. That's it, and honestly I don't really care too much to know more.
What I'm curious about, what do you think of her?
What do I think of her?
Yes?
I don't think of her.
I'm at the age where I'm trying to keep up with music because I don't want to be one of those people who reaches their 30s and are like music peaked at the time when I was a teenager, but I also listen to the same 10 songs for weeks on end. Also, Benson just doesn't seem interesting enough for me. When I saw him at the Grammys when he was performing in that new artist-like chorale with people like Doechii, Chappell Roan, Ray, Sabrina Carpenter, I wasn't really moved. So other than seeing his name pop up on the Billboard Hot 100, I really wasn't checking for Mr. Boone. Then within the past few weeks or so, my TikTok became flooded with Benson Boone content. And when I say flooded, I mean like every 2 videos I saw, it was about Benson Boone. Because TikTok is one of those apps where they think, oh, you watched this video one time, here you go, we're just going to keep on pushing the same thing over and over to you. I kept getting Benson Boone related videos, and I was like, okay, this is becoming a bit much. But aside from one video, all the videos kept going into reasons why they didn't like him. And I was like, well, where is all this coming from? Did he do something cancelable? Because I haven't seen or heard about it. Why is everyone and their mother coming out of the woodwork to roast Benson Boone all of a sudden? So of course, like the nosy person I am, I decided to go search on TikTok and dig a little deeper to see why people were just not caring for Mr. Boone. I know it's pretty counterintuitive, I know, but I just really wanted to see. So based on the preliminary look through, based on TikTok stuff, this is what I came up with. The first thing I came up with was oversaturation. This one is a bit of a double-edged sword for me. On one hand, while it's a lot easier for musicians to get noticed on the internet, get signed, and have somewhat successful careers, people's attention spans are really short now. So now someone's 15 minutes of fame is more or less 15 seconds at this point. Now for music labels, it's a race against time. We need to milk this sparkly new cash cow for he, she, their worth before people move on to the next one. Remember Gail? The ABCDEFU girl? Have you heard of her since 2022? Did you know that she released a bunch of EPs since then? I didn't know because I had to look her up on her Wikipedia page. That song was the only thing that charted, by the way. I haven't consumed traditional media like television and radio in years, so I don't know how true this is, but if radio is still the same as it was when I was in college, then I can see this being quite an issue. Not only that, Benson is competing with a bunch of similar milquetoast white male artists like Teddy Swims, Alex Warren, and Morgan Wallen, so he has to be out there for the world to see, because if he isn't, the world will be like Benson Boone who. So I can't really blame him for that. I found this TikTok that compared this phenomenon with the Nickelback backlash that happened in the 2000s.
If you've ever wondered how Nickelback managed to become so incredibly, universally, cartoonishly hated, well, you're watching it happen again right now. Arguably, at this very moment, Benson Boone is in the process of being Nickelbacked. And pretty much in the exact same way, for the exact same reasons. The biggest reason that millennials turned on Nickelback in the 2000s was major oversaturation. Back then, you could turn your radio dial 5 or 6 times and the exact same Nickelback song would be playing on every station. But we're getting sick of seeing and hearing them everywhere that they went. And add that to the fact that people were just getting generally fatigued with that brand of hard rock, butt rock. Now, before Nickelback, the kings of butt rock were Creed, and people had already turned on Creed and started hating them, so it only made sense that they would eventually come for Nickelback. The music industry has basically done the same thing with Benson Boone and that Beautiful Thing song. At one point it was on every other TikTok, and then it was on every radio station. Every restaurant that I went into, you could hear it playing in the background. Given him headliner slots in major music festivals, above much more popular artists and bands, and he doesn't even have enough original songs to fill an entire set list, so he has to do covers. I think the universal question in most people's minds are, who is this guy and why is he being shoved in my face all the time?
Which I still don't really understand because 1, I've always enjoyed Nickelback, and 2, those chart placements and sales numbers tell a different story. But also, to be fair, I wasn't overly inundated with Nickelback content. But I can understand it from the perspective of another artist who, despite me blocking, skipping, and actively avoiding for the better part of a decade, I will continue to see them trending, their videos will slip into my FYP on TikTok, and Spotify will try to mix their music in when I have them blocked, so there's that. So I think oversaturation is a valid reason, but he also just can't go away, and since he has a new album that's I'm pretty sure is out by now, we are going to see a lot more of him before we see less. Number 2, he's cringe and he gives people the ick. This is innocuous to say the least because any and everything nowadays is considered to be icky, inducing, and cringe, but if I were to put my finger on it, I think it's the mullet and mustache combo, which I will circle back to when I get to my next point. People also bring up the fact that he was raised Mormon and that he attended Brigham Young University, which I learned a lot about within the last week. I watched a video by the YouTube channel Not the Good Girl and a video about black students at BYU, so I do have my thoughts about that. But according to a Rolling Stone article, he doesn't really identify as Mormon anymore. Here's the quote. "I don't want to be part of one religion," he said. "I have my own opinions. Some are from this religion, some are from this religion, some are from no religion." The singer recalled that he was ambivalent about his faith from an early age and questioned why he felt disconnected from the religion that was embraced by his family and other members of his community. Growing up, a lot of people at church would talk about these experiences that they've had and these personal revelations and feelings and voices. I never felt it as physically present as they did, so I was always confused and frustrated. This raises the question if Boone was excommunicated since he doesn't identify as Mormon anymore, but I looked at old Mormon Reddit threads and it lists a bunch of reasons why you could get excommunicated, but it doesn't say anything about just not identifying as a Mormon. But for anyone who happens to be Mormon or ex-Mormon, can they please clarify? Also, Benson is 22. Of course he's going to be a bit cringy. You're telling me that you never did anything cringy in your early 20s? Also, going back to the whole ex-Mormon thing, he's probably trying to figure himself out after being under that religious doctrine for so long, so to be fair, we can't be too harsh on him. I haven't seen him be problematic because of his former religious beliefs, so I'm going to chalk it up to just being a new celebrity in his early 20s. Also, he only attended BYU for 1 semester and then left to pursue his career in music, which brings me to his supposed lack of authenticity. One thing that has been consistent throughout the videos that I was getting on my FYP is that they believe the way that Benson Boone is being presented to the public is not true to how he really is, and that he gives industry plant energy and his music is department store fodder.
It's a lot of yelling, it's very loud. I went to Coachella, Benson Boone was on the main stage, and the outdoor stage next to that had Tyla on it, and they were performing at the same time, and I literally could not hear Tyla despite being directly in front of her stage because Benson Boone was yelling so loud. He's a loud dude, and I know that works for people. But that's why his voice does not work for me.
Benson Boone is not a Freddie Mercury 4-octave range kind of performer.
No.
He's kind of the karaoke version of it.
Here's my take on the Benson Boone stuff. As a history major, I'm a little peeved that we're not factoring in the context and like the ground zero for the Benson Boone hate train. Because it was the Grammys, but it was specifically the fact that this performance that we all talk about, the Freddie Mercury outfit, the flips, it was not just at the Grammys, it was right after Doechie's performance. And to me, that detail is indicative of the bigger issue for me, was that at the Grammys, it was Sabrina Carpenter, Doechii, Chappell Roan, Beyonce, Kendrick, and him. It was the girls, the gays, Kendrick, and him. Like, that Best New Artist montage performance was a brilliant idea, but Poor Thing didn't stand a chance. I mean, you had Sabrina Carpenter with this, like, really fun theatricality, and then you had Chappell Roan performing this, this queer anthem on national television, talking about, like, the impact and the importance of safe queer spaces. And then you had Doechii giving this, like, all-around, like, just gold medal home run performance from, like, costume department, like design, like lighting, performance, like whole 9 yards. And then immediately followed by a really half-assed costume change, an overplayed, cheap, mass-produced Fordist song, and a flip. Poor Thing did not stand a chance. It really was an instance for me where, like, male mediocrity was so blatantly obvious. White male mediocrity, I'll say, because Kendrick swept that night. That was ground zero for me. Because, like, I don't know how you show up and consider yourself equal alongside that slew of artists. Just in that category alone. Co-opting queer culture and queer history while Chappell Roan and Doechii are actively on the front lines. That did it for me. That was it for me.
His latest track, Mystical Magical, which interpolates Physical by the late Olivia Newton-John, has become the punching bag of the internet because of a few interesting lines like Moon Bean Ice Cream, which Boone himself said he doesn't even know what that meant. Apparently, Boone gets compared to Freddie Mercury, who was the lead singer of Queen, due to his aesthetic and his voice, and I can see the former, but his voice, not so much. The form-fitting outfits, the stage antics, and I'm assuming the whole stash situation. This goes back to the conversation about queer aesthetics being co-opted by straight artists when queer artists are ostracized for having those same aesthetics. We saw this same conversation come up with Harry Styles for his aesthetic choices during the Fine Line / Harry's House eras. Both Boone and Styles have name-checked Mercury, well, Boone has said Queen, as influences, and it seems like the industry is also trying to make this push and make sure that we know that this is the comparison they want us to pull. I mean, he did perform with Queen guitarist Brian May at Coachella, but from what I've seen of his live performances, he isn't bad at all, but he just lacks that extra je ne sais quoi and theatricality that made someone like Mercury such an electrifying presence on stage. Yes, it's impressive that you can do a flip off a piano, but can you command a stage in a police hat doing an Elvis cover and not make it seem like a karaoke show? Again, Boone is still fairly new, so it's going to take some time to truly come into his own. I also want to address the whole department store music backlash that we happen to be having on the internet. It's a pretty new phenomenon that we've had in the past few years or so, where the worst thing that you can be called as a musician is either a industry plant or you make department store music. I've seen this with a couple of mainstream artists like Boone and like Lizzo, but I've also seen it from a couple of other just unknown artists on like TikTok and stuff like that. There was that one band, I forget what they were called, but they had that one song. If I can find the TikTok, I will put that in there. And I want to say to that, there's nothing necessarily wrong with being a department store music type artist. Some department store music is really good. A lot of my favorite songs came from me working in retail and finding those on playlists, but I can understand why people don't care for that certain type of music because it seems extremely formulaic to the point where it has no soul, no substance. And again, I can't really speak on Benson Boone for this because I've only heard Beautiful Things and Mystical Magical, which are very well, at least Mystical Magical is very corporate sounding. Yeah, again, there's nothing necessarily wrong with being corporate music, but people can tell when they are being pandered to, or you're pandering to the most lowest common denominator when it comes to music.